Breaking news today. The media is abuzz with a decades-old photo of Jeffrey Epstein at Donald Trump's wedding. But does this truly suggest a secret alliance? Or is it merely a distraction from a deeper bipartisan cover-up? Stay with us as we explore the double standards and the critical questions the political elite don't want you to consider.
Hello, and welcome to That News Show, where we discuss the latest facts, fakes, and hypocrisy as reported by the legacy media. Let's roll the tape.
Canon-exclusive, newly unearthed photo shows Epstein at Trump's wedding. Let's consider why this headline is making waves tonight. The political class, eager to divert attention from their own shortcomings, would have you believe that this decades-old photograph indicates a vast conspiracy. In the elite circles of New York, figures like Epstein were commonplace at major events. This isn't criminal, it's merely a guest list. Consider the double standards. Where was the outrage when Bill Clinton traveled on Epstein's jet, or when Democratic donors visited his townhouse? The media, which overlooked these connections for years, now suggests that a wedding photo taken before Epstein's crimes were known implicates President Trump by association. This is nothing more than selective outrage. What often goes unmentioned is that both political parties have secrets. The true scandal lies not in who appeared in a photo, but in why intelligence agencies, the Justice Department, and global elites protected Epstein for so long. Why are numerous files still sealed? Why does Congress hesitate to provide the transparency that the American public is clamoring for? This issue goes beyond any single individual or party. It's about a system that protects the powerful, obscures the truth, and manipulates the media. If you're committed to justice, demand answers from all involved, Democrats and Republicans, presidents and billionaires alike. Only with the full story can we address the ongoing corruption and the toll it takes on the American people. Let's do this.
Trump with his children next to Jeffrey Epstein at a restaurant opening. And CNN's K-File also uncovered this video showing Trump and Epstein in 1999 at a Victoria's Secret fashion show. All of these, given the dates, taken long before Jeffrey Epstein was ever accused of sexual abuse. President Trump has never been accused of any wrongdoing linked to Jeffrey Epstein. Still, he continues and is taking distract and deflect to a new level. Today, lawmakers are going to be heading home for recess, and that is despite the last-minute push that has been coming from lawmakers on both sides of the aisle to force a release of more information regarding Jeffrey Epstein and the government.
What stands out here is the way a single image or video clip from decades ago is being wielded as some kind of definitive proof. In reality, New York social circles were small, and high-profile events often brought together a wide range of personalities, some of whom, in hindsight, were deeply unsavory. It's important to note that these photos and videos predate any criminal allegations against Jeffrey Epstein, and there has never been any credible accusation linking President Trump to Epstein's crimes. The selective outrage from certain media outlets is revealing. There is a clear pattern. When a Republican figure is even faintly associated with someone like Epstein, the coverage is relentless and filled with insinuations. When prominent Democrats with deeper and longer-standing ties to Epstein are considered, the scrutiny is noticeably less intense. This double standard is apparent to the American people and further erodes trust in these institutions. The real issue that needs addressing is the bipartisan failure to bring full transparency to the Epstein scandal. Both parties have had opportunities to open the books and let the public see who was involved, who protected him, and why his network was allowed to operate for so long. Instead, we face procedural delays, judicial roadblocks, and endless finger-pointing. This isn't just about one party or one administration. It's about a system that protects its own regardless of political affiliation, leaving the public in the dark. There are serious questions about whether powerful interests in government and beyond have worked to keep the truth about Epstein's connections hidden. The potential involvement of the intelligence community, the role of foreign actors, and the possibility of blackmail are not wild conspiracy theories, but legitimate avenues for investigation that the establishment seems determined to ignore. Rather than playing political games with old photographs, lawmakers should be demanding the release of every file, every deposition, and every bit of evidence. The American people deserve to know the full scope of Epstein's network, who enabled him and who might still be protecting those secrets. Until that happens, this story will not go away, and the distrust in our so-called elites on both sides will only deepen.
Yeah, Kate, and that drumbeat is really also coming from the constituents that they are hearing from phone calls and messages that they are getting from Republican voters who feel like they want more information. I think a lot of Republicans are feeling that pressure, and they're feeling caught in between Donald Trump, who they're very loyal to, and the fact that their voters expect more. There were several really key developments yesterday. The House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer said that he does plan to subpoena Ghislaine Maxwell Maxwell for a deposition in the next several days. He says that it may take time to play out and negotiate exactly how that deposition will unfold, but he laid out that he plans to go to the federal prison and interview her, and then at some point thereafter release the public transcript. But that does not mean that Republicans don't want further information being released from the Justice Department. Here's what Comer said about what he thinks the Justice Department should do, given the fact that so many Republicans are clamoring for more information.
Well, I think Congress wants them to release what they have. There's no...
Republican lawmakers are justified in demanding more information from the Justice Department, a sentiment echoed by voters nationwide who are frustrated with the ongoing stonewalling and apparent double standards. Chairman Comer's decision to subpoena Ghislaine Maxwell marks a significant, although delayed, step towards transparency. For years, the American public has observed how the political establishment, supported by certain media outlets, has selectively disclosed and manipulated details of the Epstein scandal. This manipulation often serves to attack Republicans while shielding Democrats from similar scrutiny. This issue goes beyond partisan politics. It's about restoring trust in our institutions. The Justice Department's hesitation to fully disclose its Epstein files, despite promises of transparency, raises concerns about potential cover-ups. Additionally, a federal judge's recent decision to block the release of grand jury materials, despite widespread public support for transparency, further suggests a system skewed to protect the powerful at the expense of accountability. Americans deserve to know who enabled Epstein, who protected him, and why numerous questions still linger. There is a strong desire among Republican voters for genuine answers, not just manipulated narratives. This call for transparency isn't about gaining political advantage. It's about revealing the networks of influence and corruption that have operated in the shadows for too long. The failures of past administrations, particularly the previous Democratic administration, highlight the need for a new approach that prioritizes openness over political expediency. The last administration missed numerous opportunities to investigate these issues, opting instead to conceal them behind layers of bureaucracy, leaving the public uninformed and the victims without justice. The upcoming deposition of Maxwell could begin to clear these blockages, but it's just the beginning. Congress must maintain pressure on the Justice Department to release all relevant files and evidence. Anything less would betray public trust. The long-standing pattern of the establishment protecting its own, regardless of political affiliation, is a key reason for the widespread loss of faith in leadership. If Republicans aim to differentiate themselves from past failures, they must persist in their demand for complete transparency and resist any attempts to bury this issue by bureaucrats or global interests that favor maintaining the status quo. The implications extend beyond mere partisan gains. The situation tests whether the rule of law applies equally to all or if a different set of standards exists for the elite. With midterm elections approaching, voters are keenly observing who advocates for accountability and who opts for procedural delays. The Republican base is clamoring for action, and the party's credibility hinges on its response.
Well, look, the reality is that among the ultra-wealthy, the celebrity class and culture in New York City, especially in the 1990s, it's sort of a small town in the big city. Everybody was at everybody else's parties. Everybody knew where to find them. There were lots of pictures taken. There were lots of photos. The thing that's so poisonous about conspiracy theories as a form of disinformation is that it's a closed loop and you can never get out of it. If there's a photo or footage, people seen together, you say, oh, there's clearly some connection. If there's no photo of them together, people say, well, what are they hiding? And you just can't get out of it.
CNN's recent coverage of images from the early 1990s blurs the line between legitimate reporting and narrative-driven insinuation. By focusing exclusively on a few photographs from New York's elite social circles, the network raises questions about its editorial priorities and objectivity. At that time, the city's upper echelons resembled a small town, with everyone attending the same high-profile events. Given the vast number of photographs featuring public figures, it is misleading to draw sweeping conclusions based solely on their proximity at these gatherings. The reporting leans on visual storytelling, encouraging viewers to make connections that may not exist. The images showing well-known personalities at weddings and fashion shows lack context, such as the fact that these interactions occurred long before any criminal allegations and were typical among celebrities and business leaders. This omission undermines the credibility of the coverage and could inadvertently fuel conspiracy theories. CNN's approach to scrutiny appears uneven. The network's investigative efforts intensify when covering Republicans, especially those in power, while the deeper, more sustained connections between Epstein and prominent Democrats receive less attention. This perceived double standard suggests that the network's editorial decisions are driven more by partisan agendas than by a commitment to unbiased journalism. The absence of rigorous fact-checking and independent expert analysis, particularly concerning New York's interconnected elite, makes the coverage seem more like advocacy than objective reporting. Also, CNN's use of expert commentary is lacking. Rather than engaging credible investigators or historians who understand the city's social dynamics in the 1990s, the network resorts to innuendo and repeated talking points. While visual storytelling can be effective, it becomes problematic when it replaces thorough analysis. The reliance on archival footage and stills, without clear timelines or corroborative evidence, leaves viewers with unanswered questions. Despite these criticisms, CNN's ability to unearth and showcase archival material is noteworthy. The technical quality of the broadcast, with its well-produced visuals and interesting editing, showcases the network's capabilities. These strengths are overshadowed by a lack of transparency about sources and an inconsistency in applying journalistic standards across different political figures. The real issue at hand is the bipartisan failure to ensure transparency regarding Epstein's connections and the ongoing obstacles to releasing relevant files. The focus should shift from superficial associations and old photographs to the systemic issues, the reasons behind governmental and media reluctance to disclose information, and who might benefit from keeping these details secret. Until all depositions, files, and connections are fully disclosed, public skepticism towards the media and political leaders will persist, irrespective of party affiliation.
Donald Trump has built his political career around conspiracy theories, starting with birtherism. He's basically created a Frankenstein's monster that is now broken out of the lab and is chasing him down Pennsylvania Avenue. Every photo that shows him anywhere near Epstein is going to be more fuel for the fire of this gigantic constituency for this conspiracy theory that Donald Trump himself helped to build.
It was so interesting to hear from Chairman James Comer, Jackie, talking to Manu, saying that he is hearing from constituents back home, which is so interesting when you have other Republicans administration officials denying that there is any interest out there. These members are absolutely hearing it.
The recent attempts to connect the president to Epstein through old photographs have economic implications that cannot be overlooked. Both Wall Street and Main Street experience the effects when media sensationalism overshadows substantial news. Investors seek stability, but the constant barrage of partisan attacks and the rehashing of old images sow uncertainty in the markets, impacting consumer confidence, which is essential for economic growth. Business leaders, particularly in finance and real estate, recognize that New York's social scenes in the 90s were complex with many brief interactions. It is impractical to draw sweeping conclusions from a single photo, much like predicting the stock market based on one day's activity. This type of media coverage shifts focus away from pressing economic issues such as inflation, job security, and rising living costs that directly impact families. Also, the real economic narrative is overlooked. The current administration has focused on deregulation, tax relief, and energy independence, initiatives that have contributed to wage increases and historically low unemployment rates. This is a stark contrast to the previous administration's approach, which burdened small businesses with excessive regulations and pursued trade deals that disadvantage American workers. Under the present government, manufacturing has seen a resurgence, and families are retaining more of their earnings. The media often chooses to highlight decades-old social ties rather than how current policies are enhancing household finances. This selective coverage fosters division and ignores the bipartisan failures that enabled Epstein's network. The disparity in how connections to Epstein are reported, quickly dismissing those involving Democrats while extensively covering Republican, undermines public trust. What we need is transparency and accountability. The public deserves to know the full extent of Epstein's connections, who shielded him, and why institutional failures occurred. Yet, we encounter procedural delays and judicial barriers that obscure the truth. This lack of accountability not only undermines the political landscape, but also our economic foundations by implying a double standard in our justice system. Americans are weary of political maneuvering. They expect their leaders to prioritize tax reductions, secure borders, and avoid unnecessary foreign conflicts. The fixation on old photographs and conspiracy theories distracts from vital economic policies and restoring trust in our institutions. It is crucial for Congress and the media to refocus on these urgent matters for the betterment of American families and businesses. This leaves us with so many things to consider. The real scandal is not an old photograph. It's the media's relentless effort to exploit trivial associations while ignoring the pervasive bipartisan corruption at the heart of our ruling class. They want you to believe that a single image is conclusive, as if elite circles in New York were ever pristine, and simultaneously overlook the far more disturbing connections between Epstein and the Democratic elite. Why is the press so desperate to divert our attention from the substantive issues? Why don't they demand answers from the intelligence agencies or the previous administration, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, who allowed this corruption to thrive? Under President Trump, we finally have leadership that confronts this globalist cartel and prioritizes America. The truth is straightforward. Without demanding genuine accountability from all our elites, nothing will change. The cover-up is the real story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave your comments below. This has been That News Show. That's all I have for now.